Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of our podcast on the subject of the lowdown on low code. We are the low code expert. We love to say that. We've been doing it for a very long time. All of us here at analysis.tech. I'm Francis Carden, and we've got a great guest with myself and Dave Marcus today, but we'll cover that in a moment. So my background, as some of you may know, I started one of the first RPA companies back in 2005. We got acquired by Pega. So all my life, it's been pretty much since the age of 17, and some say even before that, I've been doing automation. I've been involved in RPA, so automation of as-is processes, and also then obviously the heart of what I love and I'm passionate about, 4GLs that became low code, and that's where I live, and that's where I think I'm going to die. I always say on my tombstone, it's going to say something like, "Here lies Francis Carden, along with all the legacy code that should have gone way before him." So with that, I'm going to introduce Dave Marcus, who you all know well, and Dave's going to introduce our guest. Dave?
All right, great. Thanks, Francis. I'm quite pleased today to introduce all of you to Shaun Leisegang from Tecala. Shaun will tell you a little bit more about who he is in a minute or so and what they do. We've decided to make this a little bit of a different lowdown and low code session in that Shaun leads the automation and data and AI business for Tecala as a services organization. Typically, most of our sessions have been done with either vendors or someone specific to an end customer type engagement. So we're changing this up a little bit, and we think that you'll get a different perspective on things. Hearing this from Shaun, you'll see us do more of this over the next weeks and months or so. So Shaun, just to kind of kick this off, we always like to sort of introduce people and have them talk about where they come from, how they got into this crazy world that we're in right now. And then maybe it's, one of the things that people tend to like is if you indicate something that most people just don't know about you. It might have nothing to do with the business and more at a personal level, but it's always helpful to kind of understand something unique about the person that we're working with.
No pressure.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Francis. Firstly, thanks very much for having me on the show today. So something unique about me, I have an extreme fear of heights, right? Not many people know that. I've thrown myself out of airplanes, gone on crazy bridges, all of those wonderful things, but I have an extreme fear of heights. So anytime you see me in a meeting on the top floor of a building or going up in a glass elevator, if I'm not standing near the side, that's why, because I have an extreme fear of heights. But yeah, other than that, pretty a unique individual. Grew up in South Africa, been fortunate to live around the world from the UK and Europe to the US and now down in Australia. That's a little bit about me. Some other things, maybe just to get started, I'll tell you a little bit about kind of the career journey, so to speak. In the beginning, another unique thing is I was never going to be in IT. So finished school like many people, didn't know what I wanted to do, decided to become an accountant, got through year one of accounting and said, that is certainly not for me. Stumbled into a friend's bedroom and saw him coding up in VB back in the old days. And that's really where I started kind of getting an interest in IT. So Dave, from there, kind of started off in the early days, really had a passion for solving business problems with technology. Found my groove pretty early on with you in the K2 world. So obviously there we were doing a lot of workflow solutions, and I was always drawn to kind of simplifying complexity, helping business move faster with less and do more with less. From there, it kind of moved over to the rapidmation world. So we focused on intelligent automation. So similar to Francis, that's where we brought in the wonderful world of robotic process automation. Rapidmation was all about bringing together the worlds of robotic process automation and digital process automation. So really combining the worlds of humans and software bots. And really that made sense for us to create an end-to-end workflow. And really that led me to where we are today, right? So my business, Rapidmation, got acquired by a company called Tecala. Tecala is a managed service provider or an end-to-end technology partner for customers. And now what I do is I head up the automation, data, and AI practice for Tecala. Means that I speak with customers every day to bring automation, data, and AI solutions to life. So yeah, that's the summary of who I am and where I've come from.
Hi, Shaun. That's great. Thanks for that intro for everybody. I think, it's good. We always do this is to get that background, but being scared of heights, but you also fly a lot and you jump out of airplanes. So there's a bit of an oxymoron going there.
Yeah.
It's cool. And on that high note, I should say, you're kind of like it's kind of new for us to be bringing the service providers and the systems integrators into these discussions. As most of our audience will know, we've spoken to a lot of the leaders in the vendor space who cover and have technologies around automation, low code, no code, and all the things in between. But as a service provider, what would be of interest to our audience is as they look to a service provider, they've got all sorts of problems. They've got things they want to optimize. They've been doing that for decades, but they continue to want to optimize what they've got. And they also want to look to the future to reimagine, perhaps, as we're getting more and more of this AI impacting the things like the model application developments and the low code that have been around for a long time, but really, I think, maturing that to people to realize this is the future of your software and enterprise applications, not necessarily in heaps and heaps of coding and recoding. So tell us and our audience a little bit about the type of projects you and your team get involved in. What do you like? What do you try to avoid? And what does a typical engagement look like?
Yeah, thanks, Francis. So I guess there's really two questions that people often come to me with, right? They say to me, Shaun, I know I need to automate, but I have no idea where to start. Or they come to me and they say, hey, Shaun, I know I need to automate and I already have an idea. So we've kind of built this tried and tested methodology that gives people support for every step along the way on that automation, data, and AI journey. If someone comes to us and says, hey, Shaun, I need to automate, but I have no idea where I need to start, what we start off with is something that we call the art of the possible. So really that's a 1 hour hyper-personalized session to the audience. Maybe it's an industry, so maybe it's insurance or legal, maybe it's more horizontal, so finance or IT or something like that. We action pack that session with real world examples of what we've done for other customers. And that gets the hamster running on the wheel, so to speak, right? So people start to kind of open up their ideas, their minds to what is possible and what other people are doing. Then what we do is at the end of that session, we go around, and the second part of the methodology is building out what we call an automation pipeline, simply a list of ideas that people have, right? So we jot down things that they might like to do. Then the third part of the methodology is something that we call an automation evaluation. And really that can be the starting point. So if someone comes to us and says, hey, I've got an idea I need to automate, can you have a look at it? We might start at this stage of the methodology. But what we do there is we spend an hour with them, we get them to take us through the process, and we come back to them with an automation evaluation that tells them, do we believe it's a good idea for an automation? Yes or no? If so, what is the outcome they're going to get? So are they going to be able to make more money, save time or money, or is it because they have to? So regulatory compliance. And then most importantly, we put a rough order of magnitude estimate on it, on what it looks like from a setup cost and a monthly subscription cost. And then the last part of the methodology is actually bringing that to life using something called a proof of value pack, and then eventually evolving that into a production ready process. So again, it's just got different steps in it to help people at different stages, but really it's designed to answer those two questions. I know I need to automate, I don't know where to start, or I know I need to automate and I've already got an idea. Can you help me bring that idea to life?
And is there a common use case that you like to get involved in, and certainly stuff you try to avoid?
Yeah, great question, right? So I think why we've created that methodology is to help guide customers on what not to automate, right? So no one ever says, oh, I don't want to automate a process. But really where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak, is where you're doing high load scenarios where it's taking lots of people time. So all those tedious, mundane, repetitive things, that's where we want to focus in on. And that's why we have that methodology and specifically that automation evaluation, so we can help guide customers in that respect. But going on to things that work really well, I mean, we break it down into the different business domains. So things like front office, back office processes, employee experience, customer experience, and suppliers and partners. And I could probably give you a plethora of examples across each of those. Most common ones are things like employee onboarding, loan origination, accounts payable. These are all really, really good examples of processes that need to be automated within businesses.
Great. Thank Dave.
Cool. So, Shaun, let me switch a little. This is a very noisy world that we live in right now, especially for customers. We go through like every day, there's some new AI announcement, someone with a better LLM than the next guy before. Agents are everywhere, even though they may not be. and there's and everyone has all of these things, irrespective of whether they do them well, don't do them well, etc., or if they're just a piece of marketing. But at the same point in time, we're very clear about the fact that these new technologies are emerging as foundational to delivering new transformative outcomes for the business. Everyone's playing in this sort of agentic AI world, but people use this term in a broad range of ways. And so when you're engaging with customers, typically, what does it mean for you and your organization? And then how do you advise people to kind of get beyond the noise?
Yeah, Dave, great question, right? So firstly, you're 100% right. It's really noisy out there. Everyone is AI washing things. Everyone is saying that they do AI agents, right? So the first thing I think is that different people define an agent as different things, right? So some people call a chatbot an agent. Other means a large language model with memory. Some see it as the next evolution in automation. And an AI agent is the combination of three things: automation, generative AI, and actually you and I as people. So I guess the first thing to think about these agents is it is an inflection point. So in my opinion, it is the next evolution of automation. But that doesn't mean that all the previous things that we did in the past go away, right? This actually builds on some of those things. So really what these little agents, in my opinion, allow us to do is they're more goal-based rather than task-based. So we've traditionally had these task-based type automations. If this happens, then go do that. If this happens, then go do that. And then what we did is we had people on the other side that were performing some of the tasks, right? Where these AI agents come into play is these AI agents give us the capability to then go through and automate some of these previous kind of parts of the process that humans needed to get involved in. So really, in my opinion, an agent actually brings together three very important things. It has that generative AI and that goal-based thinking. It needs the ability to go and do things. So I don't know, go pick up a document, create a document, go integrate with a system. And that's really the actions or the tools that it needs. It needs knowledge, so it needs context on the organization. And then most importantly, it actually needs you and I as humans in that to handle all the exception scenarios, escalation scenarios, maybe make those judgment calls. So in my mind, kind of the new dream team is a combination of robots or traditional automation. It's a combination of AI agents, and it's a combination of you and I as people, but we need to use those all in the right mix to solve challenges for customers.
Cool.
So if I look at just as you can never put AI aside, but let's put it aside for a moment. One of the things that we prescribe to, and whether it was called 4GLs, then it became low code. Ultimately, for me, it's been model application development platforms. And when I joined the let's just say the Pegas of the world, one of the things I quickly bought into, and I'm passionate about this, regardless of what who the vendor is and what you're doing, but we've overlooked this need to orchestrate work, right? The need to orchestrate, whether it's something as small as a task or an agent, or if it's something as big as a process. We saw a lot of people turn to process mining, for example, but didn't do orchestration. And it's kind of like, just orchestrate good, bad, and ugly work. And that's one of those other things I'm on a soapbox around. So I really subscribe to orchestrate before you do anything else. But we know that as long as that's in your planning, what do you see? Do you feel orchestration for you is just another buzzword? Is it fundamental to what you do? Are you subscribing and you seeing clients buying into this idea? Because if orchestration within the model, you get the benefits of AI very quickly, and you get the benefits of it already being secure and governed because those orchestration engines have that built in along with the models. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Francis, another great question, right? So in my opinion, orchestration is really the new battleground, right? So just like AI agents are evolving pretty quickly, AI orchestration is emerging as the real differentiator and what I refer to as the new battleground, right? So it's not just about having agents, it's about how you can coordinate them, how you can control them, and how you can connect them to real world outcomes. So I think UiPath have something that I quite like. They talk about how agents think, robots do, and people lead. And on their own, each of those has unique value, but the magic really happens when you can combine those together and orchestrate them in a meaningful, governed and business aligned way. So I think what we're seeing out there is that everyone's going to have AI agents, right? So we're going to have marketing agents and legal agents and HR agents. Some will use different types of technology. Some will use UiPath. Some will use Microsoft Copilot. Maybe ServiceNow will be thrown in there. Some will be your custom built kind of agents. But the real challenge is going to be weaving those all together. So how do you stitch them together? How do you avoid the chaos? How do you keep them aligned to business outcomes? And orchestration will become the central layer, and already is that central layer. There's some very cool tools out there, and maybe there's a tool that UiPath has recently released called UiPath Maestro that gives you everything you need: the guardrails, the governance, that unified process view. And then really what that allows you to do is those agents can think and decide, the robots can execute the actions, and then we can escalate to people when we need to. So yeah, I think orchestration is absolutely critical in this world, and orchestration will be at the heart of everything that we do and give us those guardrails that we need.
So Dave, we've got someone else joining us on our soapbox, so that's good. Over to you, mate.
Yeah, I think Shaun, you're completely correct. I mean, we're seeing this as like the new territory to focus on for exactly the point you made. There are going to be loads of agents from loads of organizations, some custom, some off the shelf, some a combination of the two. And then, the last thing that people want is uncontrolled, unmanaged, ungoverned, non-orchestrated agents. It's fine if you're trying to enable it for something that is of a simple personal productivity factor. But if you're trying to do any more than that, then clearly orchestration is an important factor. We're going to take a really quick promotion break, and then we'll be back with Shaun. So you're listening to Lowdown on Low Code, a series of podcasts from Analysis.tech. Analysis.tech are a small, dedicated boutique analyst firm focusing specifically around the slow code, automation, and agentic space. We encourage you to take a look at some of our research on analysis.tech, the website. You can sign up. It's no charge to do so. And take a look at what we have. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you need, and also provide some input on some of these podcasts as well. We're trying to make them as insightful as possible to people. So again, analysis.tech. The podcasts are available on every single platform, all the way through from LinkedIn to YouTube, Spotify, and others. Pick whichever works best for you, and give us some feedback. Francis, back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for that promotional break. Thumbs up if you like us, and don't thumbs down if you don't. But no, we don't mind either. So Shaun, getting back to, this is still kind of around the model application development platforms and obviously automation, low code, everything else. So one of the things that we've seen is with AI, everybody just wants to do it and do it now, right? And so that means that they've either forgotten about the need for governance and control or security, or for the larger clients, the other end of the scale is they're so scared, they're doing nothing, or they're doing little pieces of innovation around maybe, productivity tools, and it's helping me write an email and things like that. And so what are you seeing? How do you approach your clients when they want to get going with embedding AI across whatever it is they're doing? Because it can go almost anywhere now. I mean, one day maybe it'll just be AI, but let's worry about that later. How do you educate them? What do you see? Do you see they have fear? Do you see they have excitement, or are they managing it? And then how does Tecala go about actually making sure they then do it right?
Yeah. So firstly, totally agree, right? Governance is often the thing that people forget until it's too late. All right. So really what we do is we flip that. We say governance is really the first thing we need to talk about, specifically in the world of AI agents. Why? Well, because once you start combining agents from different vendors, UiPath, Microsoft, LangChain, Crew AI, things can really spiral fast if you don't have the right structure in place. So what we see out there is clients don't come in knowing what LLM ops are or how to apply AI risk frameworks in the world, right? They just that's not what they're about. And that's really our job comes in. We need to educate them. We need to simplify that for them. And we need to guide them through a pragmatic business aligned governance model. Now, as you mentioned, there often people can get stuck in the weeds and don't do anything because they think they need to get it perfect, right? I'm a firm believer, and one of the things I often say to people, it's no longer about if you're going to get started on this stuff. You need to get started on it, and getting started on it means getting started today. So how we help people, we don't throw policy decks at them. We show them kind of real governance in action, things like agent design documentation, human in the loop guardrails, audit trails on decisions made by agents, escalation logic, fallback procedures. We look at simulation models, so to play kind of a lot of things through these different agents to see what they might do in certain scenarios. And going back to orchestration, I think we see orchestration is governance, right? So one of the things we really believe is that orchestration, it's not about just technical layer, it's actually also a governance mechanism. So we can see through that who the agent talks to, what data it can access, when it escalates to a human, and how it's performing against these different KPIs. But ultimately, kind of this governance is about trust, right? So people need to know, can they trust these agents to act on their behalf? Can they prove what it did and why it did it? And can they improve it over time? And this stuff needs to be built in from the beginning rather than bolted on at the end. So really, our goal and our role is to help clients govern confidently, whether it's using some of our pre-built agents or building their own. It's not just about building these powerful agents, it's about building responsible ones as well.
And I know I said right at the beginning, you're one of the early SIs that we're bringing on to our podcast because we think it's an important mix as we discuss what this technology is and what the benefits are, because there's a couple of things going on right now. The SIs are building components themselves. They're learning a lot of these skills through the build and then offering these as accelerators for their clients. And also that expertise is essential because as a client buying into this stuff, you want that breadth of expertise. You're not just going to get by going out and reading a manual, trusting the vendor, as much as the vendors might hate me saying that. But it is the right delivery partner is even more essential here because you're going to have done it 150 times when they might only be doing it 5. Yeah. And I think it's that breadth of experience you bring, right? So anyway, good. Dave?
Yeah, so I guess this leads me to just understand, Shaun, how you think about, I talked about this noise earlier. Not only is the noise related to, LLMs and agents and everything else, but the noise is also related to vendors. So, every single vendor, for the most part, has a common pitch in the space. We do low code. We do it better than anyone else. We do this AI stuff. You can build agents and run them in our world, and we can coordinate them all together for you.
And we're unique.
Right. Yeah. So I guess as someone advising clients and working with a range of vendors in the space, you talked about a couple of them earlier on. How are you kind of, both from your perspective, segmenting what you do with which particular vendors, if that's an approach you take? And then when it comes to the actual engagement with customers, how often are you finding a situation where a customer will say to you, I want to use technology X because I'm already leveraging it or invested in it, even if you don't necessarily believe that that's the right thing to do to solve the outcome that's needed? And what's the approach you're taking, around multiple vendors?
Yeah, Dave, great question. So I think firstly, one of the things that we pride ourselves in here at Tecala is being the translator and not the salesperson, right? So I think really what our job is to map the business problem to the right mix of technologies and not just push a particular vendor's agenda, okay? I guess the next thing I'll say is the truth is there's no silver bullet. Everyone wants a silver bullet that solves everything. But in my opinion, there's no silver bullets. There's, of course, tools that shine in different areas. Maybe to drop a couple of examples, UiPath, in my opinion, is unmatched when it comes to deep automation, agentic control, and that enterprise-grade orchestration. The Power Platform, on the other hand, other kind of side of the coin, is ideal for broad enterprise adoption, rapid prototyping, and making low code accessible to more teams. In the Nintex K2 world, it excels at kind of structured workflow approvals, maybe some doc gen, and then things like Abby is best in class for intelligent document processing. So I think when it comes to our world, what we help clients do is orchestrate that orchestra, right? So build a composable architecture where tools complement each other rather than compete. And really what that allows us to do is really unlock value for them and make sure that those things work together seamlessly. Now, saying that, there's also the scenario where someone comes to me and says, hey, Shaun, I want to automate this thing, but I already use this thing. Can you do it? And I think when we get those scenarios, we will absolutely try help and guide that customer to say, in our experience and from what we've seen in scenario A, B, and C, you're going to be able to solve challenge 1, 2, and 3, but when you get to 4, 5, and 6, you might bump your head against the wall due to these reasons. So I think it comes from experience. It comes from using different types of technologies to solve different types of problems. And I think, in my opinion, that's what makes a good SI, is someone that's gone through those kind of lessons learned, that can come to the customer with some of those real world scenarios to help and guide them and make the right decision in terms of technology.
So that's sorry, Dave.
No, go ahead, Franz. Back over to you.
No, so this is kind of like a slightly deviation from this point, and I think this comes back down to what I stated at the beginning. My passion and our passion here of the analysts at the Low Down on Low Code at Analysis Tech. We see that there is a paradigm shift coming from enterprise applications and how they're built today. You know, I talk a lot about this. Applications were built in the early computerization era because of and as well as the limitations of all the technology we had. We never saw it as limitations back then, when the first hardware or the next operating system or the next language or the next database model or the next UI layer, they were all revolutionary or at least innovative in their day. But this has also created a lot of squirrely legacy debt. And there's a lot of technologies that will automate that tech debt, but still keeping and maintaining that tech debt. What we're seeing, and especially with the AI applied to some of these model application development platforms, is that you truly can almost try to forget the current process because it was built in the computerization era, try to automate what humans did, but try to imagine how that process might be if there were no humans involved at all, and make the human input only the exception that you need to build for the human in the loop, as opposed to making it part of it. So we're curious as to, do you buy into that evolutionary change, and how are you guys addressing your expertise and experience in that, assuming that you do buy into that, or you maybe just be quite happy doing what you're doing? And also, are you building your own IP around some of this stuff and bringing some of those services to fruition?
Yeah. So I think, to start, right, we're moving from these business applications that users click through to these business agents that can act on behalf of users. So with that in mind, you have to reimagine business processes, right? If you've just done it like you've always done it before, you're not going to get some of these gains, right? So my opinion is, in the next few years, we'll see fewer dashboards, more decisions made in real time by these autonomous orchestrated systems. Solutions will be much more modular, agentic, composable. They'll be weaved and stitched together by intelligent automation and these context-aware agents. So I think my role specifically is actually changing from delivery to more design leadership, right? So where we design systems of intelligence and where we need to reimagine the way that work gets done, because we've got all of these new tools that we can use in that specific or in specific scenarios. So it's more strategic, more collaborative, more focused on kind of outcomes rather than outputs. To your question on IP, so we're actively building our own IP, particularly through things in our world. We've got this thing called the AI Agent Dream Team, and that's a set of these little AI agents that perform different roles inside companies. So I'm a strong believer that we'll move from the organizational structure to a work structure where you'll break down work into individual components. You'll have a set of agents that will go and do those things. These agents will combine together to get to an outcome, and then disband and come together again when needed. So really, we're building some things in that space, these modular AI agents that solve these challenges. Our expectation is people could use them as is. They could take them, they could customize them, they could weave them together, they could use them as blueprints, but it is just an option of how they can accelerate and get to these outcomes faster. So really on top of that, we do have kind of a hybrid model. So we'll build just enough IP to accelerate that value. We'll continue to partner deeply with different organizations that we believe are leading the world. So now, at the moment, that's people like UiPath or Microsoft or Abby. And then we'll layer on the consulting and managed services to make sure that we can scale it sustainably. Yeah, my final thoughts there, right? The winners won't be the companies who have the most agents. They'll be the ones who orchestrate people, robots, and agents in a way that's governed, scalable, and aligned to their business strategy.
I love it. You mentioned the dream team, and so of course that brings me on to the HAL 2000. It's like, will I dream? You know, so it's like Space Odyssey. So all back to the future, as they say, or back to the past. Dave, over to you, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaun, before we wrap up, I did have one related question for you. As you build out your own IP, do you see a point in time at which services become software in this sort of new world? Not necessarily in the short term, but longer term.
Yeah. I think you don't have to go far and read a lot of predictions about kind of what's coming in the future. And I am a firm believer in services will become software, right? We'll be able to consume them and go in them. I mean, I dream of a world where I walk into a customer meeting, I record or transcribe the conversation, we chat about a business problem, and we walk out the room, and that's already created for you, right? Now, that sounds like a long way away, but to be honest, there's lots of those building blocks already there today. And that's not so far off in the future anymore. We obviously know that anyone in a creation role at the moment, specifically even software development, you've got amazing tools like Replit and these other tools that can start to create and cut code for us. So yeah, Dave, I'm a firm believer in that, and it's certainly going to be an exciting time to see how it unfolds.
But Dave, we need to show Shaun what the likes of Pega Blueprint and Appian and Camunda and all that are doing in this space, because it's quite amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaun's always keen to see interesting new players, evaluate them, and take a look at how they fit into the business. We've done a bunch of those things over the years. So certainly that's good. Shaun, I'm going to wrap up here. Thanks again for your time. I think it's been super helpful. It's a good way to kind of kick off this type of engagement with a different type of audience, not audience, with a different type of participant in this series. And so thanks again. Look forward to chatting to you on an ongoing basis and seeing what you're up to.
And seeing you in Sydney.
Yeah, see you in Sydney. Dave, Francis, thank you very much.
Thank you.